Hello everybody, welcome to the Daily Sip. My name is Oliver. My mission is to bring you closer to organic Japanese green tea, and today what we're going to dive into is matcha and the 5 reasons why matcha could be an option for you. So today we're going to discover a little bit the basics. So there are tons of reasons why you could consume matcha, but today I want to go into 5 of these different ones. So I would say let's start on. Before I go into these 5 reasons, I shortly explain you what matcha actually is. So when we talk about matcha, we talk about powdered green tea. So green tea, which is actually powdered or put into powder form. And this is actually a special step in the production process of green tea. And this then makes the special green tea called matcha, which is none other than just powdered green tea. But when we talk about matcha, one of the first reasons, and here I come into number 1, could be why you like this tea is actually the high caffeinated content. So this tea is actually highly caffeinated, and the reason is, especially when we talk about ceremonial grade or high grade matcha, then the tea is shaded. And this tea is shaded among also gyokuro, sencha or kabuse sencha in its specific form. And then we have matcha, and especially gyokuro and matcha, they are shaded for up to 20 to even 40 days, what I have heard of. But when we talk about organic or non-pesticide treated green tea, then we are talking about 28 days to maybe 25, maximum 28 days, where this tea is shaded, and the shading process is actually quite a difficult stage, and this always happens in the end of the period, so the last month of the tea growing period. There the farmers actually shade the tea with a kabuse, so-called kabuse. Kabuse is nothing else than just a nylon net which doesn't let through any tea light or only partially tea light, and often in the last 7 to 10 days no tea light actually goes and touches the plant, and the plant in a reaction to that is actually producing more chlorophyll, more caffeine, and the caffeine actually an automatic or natural protectionism of the plant against bugs and to wear off bugs in terms of the taste profile, which can then a little bit become bitter. What also happens is that actually more theanine is produced, or it's not actually produced, but what happens is that the theanine, which is an amino acid in the tea plant, which can transform itself into more of stringent catechins. When the tea is shaded, actually this process is slowed down or even brought to nearly zero, and that's why also the tea is not bitter or not becoming bitter because of there's more caffeine in it, but becomes also sweet, as the sweet compounds actually buffers out the more bitter tones of the caffeine. So when you want to go for a highly caffeinated green tea or highly caffeinated matcha in this case, then you definitely should go for a shaded. They are often called ceremonial grade, and they have often a very intense and very green color. So when we talk about the matcha, I can also make you here a comparison of these 2 teas, or these 2 tea types. So when we talk about matcha, then we talk about this product here. So you can see this is a wonderful green powder. It has a little bit kind of a stronger green note when we, for example, compare it to the latte grade matcha. This is another grade, so this is a little bit of a weaker, weaker nutrient dense matcha. And when we're going to have a look at this, just one by one, we see actually this one here has a very beautiful green intense color, and this one here has a little bit more of a paler aspect than the other one. So when we put them one by one, so we see here this one is a little bit stronger in its intense green color, while here we get a little bit more pale, and we have a little bit less of as strong intense green color. And what happens actually is that for the latte grade matcha, how we call it, or this culinary grade matchas, how they're also called in the matcha world, is actually the fact that often lower or kind of later teas are used. So when we talk about later teas, then we often talk about the second or the third harvest. And this finally then changes the taste profile of the tea, coming from a more sweeter tone going into more astringent tones. But also these teas are less shaded or even not shaded anymore in the second growing phase or the second harvest. And then also the level of caffeine drops. So when you're drinking culinary matcha, often also when you go to Starbucks, there's quite a fair amount which is used, and this is due to the fact that it is less taste intensive and it is also less caffeine intensive. When we talk about tea which is actually ceremonial grade, then we talk about tea which can get up to 68 milligrams per 2 grams, which is more or less the normal kind of amount of water which we are using. When we talk about culinary grade, then this can be cut in half down to 34 milligrams to even around 40 milligrams. When we compare this to coffee, and this is also where matcha comes in as a coffee replacement, when we talk about Arabica coffee, so a normal cup of Arabica coffee, then we also talk about 70, 75, maybe 80 milligrams. So it's quite on the level of coffee. When we talking about the double espresso or anything, then we go to 120 to 140 milligrams. And then what you can do with the matcha is that you just use, instead of 2 grams, 4 grams to come on the same level. So this is also a good side about the matcha, that you can use it in any way. You can use the 2 grams, or you can even go higher to have a more of an intense and caffeine stronger tea. Then another thing about matcha which makes it quite specific is that it is actually a tea where you consume the whole leaf. So when we look at the powder, we know that when we consume the powder, we consume the whole leaf. So for example, when we just prepare the matcha, here for example, I can use a normal cup, and then I use the sifter. And what I will do is I will just use these 2 grams and I will sift these through. I can use, for example, the back of a fork, works very well. Then you can just sift it through into your glass, into your cup, and then you can just prepare this with a little bit of water. So while I'm preparing this, I will just go on with my explanations. So next one is, so when we talk about matcha, and when we talk about, or go a little bit deeper about drinking the leaf. So when we look at matcha, matcha is very specific in compared to another tea. You actually consume the whole leaf. While here, for example, I have a normal Japanese green tea, which I just brewed this afternoon. So what you see here, I brew the leaf. So I put in water, I pour it out, and the leaf stays in. With matcha, what happens is that you're actually using the whole leaf. So you're drinking the tea leaf itself. So you're actually using the matcha, and it enters, or the whole leaf enters into your body. And the good thing about matcha is that here, for example, you have the entire leaf which is used and then brewed. Here we have, especially when we talk about culinary or ceremonial grade matcha, then we actually talk about the leaf and the best parts of the leaf. So it's destemmed, deveined, and only the finest parts of the leaf enter actually into your matcha. This provokes that you're drinking the whole leaf and you're drinking the best parts of the leaves, making it more concentrated as well in caffeine, making it more rich in antioxidant per cup, because you're drinking the whole leaf. And in general, what you're getting is a very high density in nutrients. For example, when we compare this tea with the culinary matcha, so we take the ceremonial matcha and compare it to the culinary matcha, then we see that we get around double to even 4 times the nutrients amount. When we talk about leaf tea versus matcha tea, there it depends really what kind of leaf tea you're using. When you're using gyokuro, then you have a very strong and very nutrient rich tea. There you're getting closer to matcha, but when you're using essentia, for example, there we talk about half of the nutrients. So in terms of density of the tea cup, there with matcha we are definitely in the nutrient richest form. Then another thing what is important about matcha is that it is easy to prepare. So here I just used these 2 grams, so I will mix these 2 grams now with water. Here I sifted. I will use the bamboo whisk, which is kind of the normal preparation. So you can see you can even use a cup, the bamboo whisk, and you can mix the matcha. It will allow you to make a nice froth, but not only glass and bamboo whisk is absolutely necessary. You can also use a milk frother like this one here. So that's also a perfect tool to use. What you also can do is, and what is super easy, is a jar. So if you don't want to buy the whisk, if you don't want to use a milk frother or you don't have one at home, what you can also just use is a simple jar, and then you put in the matcha, you mix it with water, then you close it, and then you just mix it like that. Super important is here that when the matcha is too hot, or kind of the water is heated up, then just take care that that you can really firmly close the jar and you can mix it well, because the hot water creates a little bit of internal pressure. So when you have a jar where you just put the top on and then you mix it, it can make the lid off. So always use a jar that is you're well able to seal, so then there's no problem in mixing the matcha. And when you're using cold water, then anyway, it's super easy to do. Good. Then, as I said, it's super easy to prepare. Normally we take around 100 milliliter of water, which is our 3 to maximum 4 ounces of water, and then we just mix the matcha. And here we can really easily mix it. So super simple to prepare. Voila, that's already done. So you can see a very beautiful kind of foam which is forming on top of it. This is always very important when you drink your matcha. Always try to create a small foam on top of your matcha. Then it intensifies a little bit this more kind of smoother texture, and this then makes the taste experience, gives kind of an additional layer of kind of a smooth silkiness to it. So that's why I personally like to mix it with the frother or with the Chassan. You can also use the milk frother. Just put it in, mix it around, et voila. There's also absolutely a possibility to do it, or the shaker jar then also creates this beautiful foam. Good. So this is this. So super easy to prepare. Before I go into the unique taste profile of matcha, what is also an easy way to do or to consume matcha is that you can mix it with other things. So with the powder, for example, you can just put it a little bit over, so kind of sprinkle it over fruits. Fruits that work well with matcha, for example, I will definitely do a food pairing session as well with matcha. But one I realized which is very, very good, is definitely strawberry. Strawberry has a very nice, intense fruit flavor, very sweet, and then it balances nicely the slight astringency of the matcha and a little bit this green umami tones. They bring in just an additional layer of taste experience. Next is the raspberries. Raspberries are also very good because also they are very sweet, especially when they're super ripe. Then you can just enjoy this kind of good mix of the matcha, which brings a little bit this fresher tones with it, with the very sweet notes of the fruit. For example, what is also possibilities? Banana. Banana is also a very good possibility. What we tried as well is tomatoes. So there was on TikTok was actually a tomato video where somebody sprinkled matcha over tomato. This, I must say, is not my preferred way to drink matcha or to consume matcha together with the tomato, even though tomato, especially if it's sweeter, it has a little bit more of this umami which pairs well with the matcha. But all in all, I like it much better when there's something sweet with the matcha. So, as I said, very easy to be mixed with other food. And if you're new to matcha, what you can also do is actually you go for a matcha latte, meaning that you mix just this 100 milliliter of matcha water matcha mix. You can use either a little bit less of water, but you also can use this 100 milliliter and then also 3 ounces of water with matcha, and then you just add the same amount of milk. If you're using less water, like for example 1 ounce of water, so this is 30 milliliters, then you just fill it up with around 150 to maybe 200 milliliter of plant-based milk. Always use plant-based milk. Dairy milk is not the best option for matcha, as it buffers the positive effects of the polyphenols due to the casein, which is the protein in the milk. And just use plant-based milk. I personally like 2. One is the oat milk. This is a tea or kind of a milk I like a lot to mix, as it brings in a sweet cereally note. And if you want to have a more sweeter and a little bit more exotic milk, then you can also go for coconut milk, which has just a very beautiful white color, and it brings in a lot of sweetness. So these are 2 milk variations, plant-based variations I personally like a lot. But now let's go to the unique flavor profile of the matcha. So what is special about matcha is that it has a beautiful taste profile in this fresh spring grass notes, a little bit of edamame. It has quite a strong density, so here I really used only 100 milliliters of water and 3 ounces. So what it gives the tea is that it is a little bit more denser, nearly a little bit more of a stronger, smoother liquor, kind of taking its space in your palate, then just working itself a little bit, little by little through. So it's not as liquid, it's not a hydrating tea. Meanwhile, when you use, for example, tea which is brewed, then also the hydration is a very important aspect of your tea drinking moment. With matcha, it's more concentrated, it's more intense, it's a little bit more of a complex flavor profile, and there's more density, smoothness, a little bit of a silkiness attached to the taste experience. In terms of flavor profile, so this one here is, for example, a Saimidori. So I used the Henta Saimidori matcha here, which is a matcha which is coming from the Samidori cultivar. Samidori, known for its a little bit more sweeter, a little bit smooth, and with a small hint of fruit. So this one here shows very little astringency. It's a very smooth, very sweet matcha. It shows a little bit fruit tones. I get a little bit of peach as well. So first you have these more greener notes, a little bit fresh spinach, young spinach, and then a little bit of edamame, which shows a little bit of this sweet corn edamame mix, which is more in the direction then of the so-called umami flavor. And then in the end, it has a very beautiful fruit flavor profile. I get the most fruit I get is the peaches, and a little bit of apricot. The Samidori has this beautiful smooth sweetness, and this is giving the tea kind of a lighter fruit note, finally bringing the tea more on this kind of lighter than sweet fine, kind of a little bit of mango notes, you get a little bit of pineapple, more of peach notes. So very beautiful, guiding you through from this a little bit fine spring, fresh cut grass notes into the spinachy notes, a little bit of edamame, bringing it in a little bit in this umami flavor profile, and then going into these lighter fruit notes. And they're not heavy, not very sweet, not sugary, but just fine, light notes. And this is very special about the Samidori itself. Sometimes when you go for a Yabukita, for example, there you have more bolder, more stronger notes, especially when you're going for a matcha latte, for example. Then I recommend you to really go for a Yabukita, as the Yabukita is stronger. It's not as fine and light as the Samidori, and stronger and bolder in its kind of this vegetal, greener, fresh cut grass notes, which you're getting from the matcha. This is, for example, the case when you go for the latte grade matcha. There definitely you have a little bit this bolder, stronger notes coming in. Good. This was this. I hope you like it. You liked it, and yeah, this is the 5 reasons why you might be interested into matcha. Thanks a lot for watching. See you and bye bye.